Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I did a video on the Young Turks doing the Black Men for Bernie thing, and I kind of want to do the video in a way that I think the video should have been done, meaning if it was done the first time around. First, let me check my value, make sure it is okay. So for those of you who don't know, Black Men for Bernie ran around areas of the United States in a big truck called Black Men for Bernie. Anybody who's been to his rallies, they would have seen him. Well, Bloomberg comes out with an article showing that he was so disgruntled at the end of the primary process that he started going for Trump. And not just going for Trump, trying to convince African Americans to either vote for Trump or, if they were so appalled by Trump, to just not vote at all. In some cases, he was pelted with rocks. In some cases, one guy said he was going to whip his ass. It was an older gentleman. This was not necessarily well received. This didn't necessarily stop the Young Turks from running a piece saying that the guy was responsible for Hillary Clinton losing the election. I shit you not. Later on in the piece, once you get past the clickbait title, they explain that, okay, well, we really don't know how much of an effect he had or whether he had an effect at all. They know squat, and yet they're saying that the guy had something to do with the Hillary Clinton losing the election. First point, nobody owes Hillary Clinton their vote. Hillary Clinton goes out and gets votes like anybody else goes out and gets votes. They're not owed, they're not owned, none of that stuff is true. At the end of the day, people vote for who they want to vote for. Two, it is purely politics of trying to get somebody to vote or not vote for a particular candidate. I would love for our politics to be butterflies and rainbows, where candidates ran out and they just ran their campaigns and they just put their values on the line, and the public goes out and just vote for the person who they want, with both parties having the best interests of the public in mind, and they just run the government in that way. That's not the world we have. That's not the world we have. Our world don't look like that. There are cutthroats in politics. I understand the cutthroat part. What goes beyond the pale is the gerrymandering, or is this kind of election fraud where they're monkeying around with the apparatus itself. But what they're complaining about here from this standpoint just boils down to a black man changed his vote to Republican and worked to get other black people to vote for Republicans. That's the story. That's the mind-blowing story from Bloomberg. I think it's more interesting to question, why would somebody do this? Thing is, he had certain assurances that Donald Trump would have these kind of, or there would be this kind of urban programs or housing renovation programs of sorts. And at the end of the election, those just went away. Poof. Just went away. They essentially, he was had. They strung him along. Now, they gave him money for this, by the way, in order to allow him to go around, trying to convince people to do this. There's no way to know his impact, if he had an impact at all. Hillary Clinton got 90% of the black vote, some to that effect, some ridiculous amount. And even that was not enough for Hillary Clinton, with her acolytes on Young Turks screaming that this guy was somehow stopped that woman from becoming president of the United States. The truth of the matter is, and the more interesting part is why. Why would he do it? Why would this guy, who's such a staunch Bernie supporter, flip to Donald Trump? His values hadn't changed. He still wanted those same things under Sanders. What would make him flip? And what the point I would make here is, he is representative of a lot of people in this country. And the idea that the Young Turks gets on TV and jokes the guy, look, that's problematic. And I would say it's somewhat this kind of divide between this us and them from the standpoint of the left. He was pissed off. He was riding around the bus saying black men for Bernie Sanders. So right off the bat, you can see his amped upness associated with this. And they cheat his guy. Now, from the standpoint of an African American, we grow up in a way where voting for Democrat, we don't have two parties. Just one. There's just one. There's not two parties. This is understood. It's understood like breathing is understood. If he gets to the point where he jumps the shark in this, there had to have been something that was magnificently potent to push him over the edge in this way. And that election of his candidate being cheated was enough to do it. Whether you want to say this guy was had, whether you want to say this guy was bought. I've said before I don't particularly like black Republicans because I don't necessarily like this kind of value system that goes against their own. But he wasn't a black Republican. That's the catch. His value system hadn't changed. What he saw was the thing that I see, and I think the thing that HA sees, and I think that Jimmy Dore sees. This is a scam. I mean, for all intents and purposes, these guys are trying to put their people and persist their people with this kind of facade of democracy. Ultimately, when a democracy, when a representative government thing really came up and we really came down to it, Democrats were willing to act just like Republicans acted with putting their thumb on the scale. No issue with it. And each of them in line would lie about doing so. It's an amazing thing. So what are you to do in this scenario? You've been a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, and you understand that the things that you care about and the things that you want for your particular world, your particular society, your particular state, your particular city, are not going to be found at the doorstep of the Democratic Party for one main reason: the distribution of power. Meaning you have none. Democrats, from the standpoint of blacks, Hispanics, many of the people who are voting for this Democratic Party are a captured audience. They're terrified. Ultimately, they don't have two parties to vote for. They have one party to vote for because the other party is absolutely rapacious and off the political spectrum. So what do you do in this situation when you realize, as long as this edifice persists itself, this you have nowhere else to go argument, where at the end of the day, your needs, concerns will get hot sauce in a purse, or somebody would say, you know, they would say something in Spanish. But ultimately, at the end of the day, your needs and concerns, the things that you care about, the things that would dramatically help your particular life are not being attended to. And that those things won't be attended to because there is no distribution of power that would even get them to acknowledge your presence. They want your vote. But if you're voting 90% when there is nothing there that even acknowledges your presence, then that just means your vote is perfunctory. You've given it away. He glimpsed this thing of the you have nowhere else to go argument and understood that the only way to get past that argument is to break that edifice. It's not that you have nowhere else to go. It's, yes, we have somewhere else to go, even if that just means not here. The only way you get it to change is to stop doing what you've always done. The problem that I have with the way he went about it is Donald Trump is not. Look, I understand being fed up and frustrated. I even understand having this thought that maybe these guys might mean something. You've been had by the Democratic Party for years. These are the guys that passed the crime bill. These are the guys that killed Glass-Steagall. These are the guys that extended the drone programs and instantiated the Bush tax cuts in the law. That's them. That's your resistance. Those are the people who are supposed to be there working out in your interests from the standpoint of labor, but they don't. Now, when you realize this, when you wake up and you pop your head over the clouds and you say to yourself, how do I change this? How do I have any impact into this particular party and this particular political process if I'm captured by two parties, one of which knows that I am terrified of the other, so it doesn't necessarily have to do anything to meet and attend to my needs? What he probably saw was the need to break the edifice of you have nowhere else to go. And until that edifice is broken, the distribution of power between labor, between blacks, between Hispanics will always be subordinate to the party itself, because you'll always be using the Democratic Party as a shield to protect you from a rapacious Republican Party. But that also means that voting for that Democrat to protect you from that Republican, you're still putting a Democrat in that office who gets carte blanche to pass right-wing stuff under this idea of identity. The identity issue has been used as somewhat of a shield to obfuscate from issues of economics. And as long as Democrats can use this particular shield to do that, you're not going to have any level of action within that particular party. And even now, they've put their thumb on the scale all throughout the United States when people are trying to get into these different seats. Meaning, the things that they say that they're trying to do, this better deal and all this other nonsense, the people who would affect that better deal are being squashed all throughout the United States. You see this, and you want something else. And you realize there's no way to get from point A to B in the way that the system is arranged. And you also know that you're not going to be so pathetic to vote for the person who cheated your candidate. You're certainly not going to get in front of an audience on TYT and look into that camera and tell your audience that doesn't want to hear you say that to vote for Hillary Clinton. You would never do that. You have more integrity than that. And so you decide for something else. In this case, you were seduced by this idea of what Trump may do because Trump you consider to be somewhat of an outsider. It makes sense from the standpoint of going from one item to one item to one item. My problem here is not so much that look, I don't particularly like this idea of going out trying to get people to not vote or vote for Donald Trump. I understand where he came from with this. My kind of point in this is it's more interesting to understand why he got to this point. And this has more so to do with the failure of the Democratic Party. All of this is at the doorstep of the Democratic Party. If hope and change actually delivered on hope and change as opposed to just desperation and discontentment, then maybe he wouldn't be out there doing that. If he wasn't cheated, maybe he wouldn't be doing that. If she didn't choose Tim Kaine as opposed to somebody who was more in line with the lefty thing, maybe he wouldn't have done that. There's all sorts of things that would have prevented him, that gave him something to actually vote for. I will tell you this though, cheating Sanders created magnificent bad blood. And that bad blood is going to be expressed for years to come. You've created a ripple, and that ripple is not necessarily going to be settled just by calling everybody united and putting up some stooge Democrat in 2018, or stooge Democrats in 2018 and 2020. What he did made sense, even though I have no idea why he believed it. And I hope that makes sense. It's, from my standpoint, from my distance, I would have never believed that a Republican Party would have put those things through. I would have never believed that a Republican Party would have cared about those things one iota. But that being said, he's just been had by the Democratic Party. He understood that under Obama, black wealth vanished. So this idea of support for a particular party just because of race or something like that, it faded away. The moment that you cheated his candidate, all loyalties faded away. He was looking for something else. And for that fleeting moment, he thought, maybe. I guess my point in this is, that's not insane for him to do that. It makes perfect sense that a person who's been let down, who understood that his particular race had been used purely as a political prop for God knows how long, he wanted something else. And in this case of wanting something else, it's just so happened that the thing he wanted was an utter fantasy. But he's not stupid for wanting it. He's not stupid at all for wanting it. Nor is he stupid for necessarily believing it, even though I think he was somewhat naive. I think my issue with the TYT reporting thing is they're so up the Democrats' ass that they literally did a report blaming a guy after blacks voting for like 90%, that this guy somehow was, that people weren't sufficiently loyal and that he had something to do with Hillary Clinton losing that race. They're still stuck on Hillary Clinton losing that race and then burning their reputations at the doorstep of the Democratic Party. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it here because I think that part is more interesting. Why would somebody do that? And what are the failures that that person had to encounter? What are the things that he might have wanted? A lot of this was done not for cash, by the way. This was done for, this is promises that Donald Trump was going to do certain things in regards to African Americans and urban centers and all this other stuff. It was nonsense, of course. But he was susceptible to it because he'd been so let down by the other party. I understand what Black Men for Bernie did. Disagree with it. Understand it. I think he was naive. I don't think he was stupid. I think the way the Young Turks reported that story is disgraceful. I think that story is disgraceful. So yeah. Seriously, Uyghur's crush on Clinton is painfully obvious now. Why doesn't he just divorce his wife and marry her already? That's hilarious. T. Wheeler, that's hilarious. The Young Turks' interpretation of Carter's actions was totally pathetic. Yeah, Luca, I thought so too. I mean, his actions in the context, they act like he had no agency. Like he was purely maneuvered by these swab Trump supporters. No, he was pissed off. And he understood that if you want anything to change, doing the same thing that you've always done was not the way to get that thing to change. The problem with this is you need a certain amount of solidarity, and it's not just among blacks. The struggle is not one of identity. The struggle is one of class. It's hard to nail that down, but it is a struggle of one of class. Getting African Americans to not vote is problematic to me. Getting them to vote for Trump is even more problematic to me. If you wanted to hurt them, you should have got him to vote for Jill Stein. That would have been more ideal. But that being said, it's not necessarily wrong. It's not necessarily wrong. I guess my point is, it's not, yeah. I guess my point is, it's not wrong. I mean, ultimately, I don't necessarily like what he did, so don't misunderstand me. But they're reporting on this as if, it's his fault that Hillary Clinton lost, that there was some kind of, thing where he should have just voted for Hillary Clinton. I mean, this stuff was over the top. Head firmly entrenched in Hillary Clinton's ass cheeks. Just Uyghurs, just... It's sad. It's sad. That woman lost to reality show hosts. And they literally burned their reputation on that woman's election, telling their audience to vote for Hillary Clinton. This guy comes out and pushes for Trump. And, I mean, Uyghur's like, I have nothing to do with him and all this other stuff. Why do you have issue with the guy? What is your issue with the guy? It's like, why do you have feelings about what this particular person did in this particular community? Are you that much in the tank for Clinton where you're just angry about it now? Oh, I thought I'd have Clinton as a president. No, those votes weren't owed to anybody. And I strongly suspect that he had no or little to no impact in that race. And if you want to say, well, even if he had negligible, you have no idea how much impact he had in the race. And the idea that you're saying that man was responsible for it is pathetic and abysmal. It is pathetic, utterly pathetic. Poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on? Basil Peterson. Organization, that's the point I was getting at. This goes beyond just race. Like, the problem with the Black Man for Bernie thing is that it was Black Man for Bernie. I know that sounds odd. There's nothing wrong with the outreach from the standpoint of Black Man for Bernie, but if you're trying to make a dent into the Democratic thing, you need to go beyond the black men thing. It needs to be class-based. You're not going to get enough African Americans to pull out of voting for Democrats. It's just not going to happen. You would get, potentially, a group of left-wingers who, in a certain amount of solidarity on their economics, would do so. There's a difference in those things. I wish that would have been a tenor that he would have went with. But either way, he didn't do anything wrong. So, it's on Russiagate. Did you see David Pakman versus CIA guy? Please watch it. I saw the first part of it. The part I saw was the CIA guy explaining to Pakman how that stuff works, and the Pakman giving his assessment as essentially a YouTuber to try to countermand the guy who worked in the CIA. It looked hilarious. Adam West, the Democrats have come to resemble a crappy salad. They drown their salad with Russia dressing to hide the fact that the lettuce is wilted. Oh, I love that. I love that. Very nice, Adam West. Fucking Batman. Love it. I absolutely love it. All right, guys. I'm not going to keep this one long. I'm tired. I've been doing this all night. I may do another one. I'm trying to get my videos out the way early today. And I ended up doing them essentially all last night. So I think I have a few more that I'm going to do, but I'm starting to wind down. So you may see me, you may not. If you don't, I may see you this evening. So you guys have a good one. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.